What's up, everyone? In this clip, normal Finkelstein absolutely demolishes Alan Dershowitz in this fiery debate, and it's not even close. Finkelstein takes every talking point Dershowitz throws at him and shreds it with cold, hard facts. Finkelstein has been a long, major supporter for the Palestine side in the Israel-Palestine conflict, and he shows that here today. So as always, we'll get into this clip, we'll give you guys our inputs and give you a deep dive into the harsh truths you won't hear on cable news. So let's get into it.
I do not believe it requires a rocket scientist to figure out that from day one, which is to say 2 months
I get the point.
ago,
Yeah, you've made the point.
Israel has been waging a war of genocide in Gaza.
You've made the point.
Thank you so much.
You've made the point. Come back to Professor Dershowitz. Here's the problem, it seems to me. I've just listened to Norman Finkelstein at length, outlining that side of the argument. It's very hard when you look at what has actually been happening in Gaza in the last 2 weeks in particular, to avoid a conclusion that Israel doesn't really seem to care if it levels Gaza to the ground, as long as it can get rid of Hamas. My issue with that is, having defended their moral right to defend themselves as a country, is I don't think they're going to eliminate Hamas, and they're certainly not going to eliminate the ideology.
Hold on, are we watching the right clip? Because Piers is actually making sense here. For the first time in a very long time, Piers hits the nail on the head. If the goal is to eliminate Hamas, then why does it look like they're targeting everyone and everything? Schools, hospitals, homes, gone. It's like saying you're trying to get rid of a termite infection by burning down the entire neighborhood. And let's not forget displacement of millions of people. Where are they supposed to go? The desert? The ocean? Where? The silence on this from Israel's so-called allies is deafening. How do you justify that? And better yet, how does Dershowitz spin this into being proportional or necessary? Let's find out.
And they're going to basically end up with a Gaza that's flattened, 2 million people displaced. Where are they going to live? Who's going to run Gaza? How does this actually play out other than catastrophically badly?
It will play out catastrophically badly because of what Hamas has done. We have to remember, first of all, you judge people by their actions, not by their words. The quotes from Professor Dinstein, who's been retired for probably 25 years, and Eland, and has nothing to do with the Israeli government, are individuals. Dinstein is 100% wrong. I'll give you an example. Is there no difference between Nazis putting Jews deliberately, 6 million of them, into gas chambers and other means of death, deliberately targeting them, and what the United States did at Hiroshima and Nagasaki? They may both be wrong, but there's an enormous difference between deliberately targeting civilians, such as the Nazis did during the Holocaust, and engaging in war actions which you know are going to inevitably cause death of civilians. So there's an enormous, enormous difference there. Then he talks about Amalek and Hamas. I know the Bible very well. And of course, Amalek was a group of people that sought to destroy Israel. But when people refer to Amalek, they don't refer to the Palestinian people. They refer to Hamas, and Hamas is Amalek. Hamas is the Nazi party. Hamas are not heroic resistance people. They cut off the breasts of women and throw them around. They behead children. They put children and burn them to death.
All right, this is Dershowitz in full-on shock value mode. Look, no one is excusing Hamas or downplaying the horrors they commit. But when you're throwing out accusations this graphic, you'd better back them up with evidence. Otherwise, it just reeks of desperation. And more importantly, how does this justify flattening Gaza? You can condemn Hamas all day long, but that doesn't give Israel a free pass to indiscriminately bomb civilians. This kind of rhetoric is designed to shut down debate, not foster it. And it's classic Dershowitz: distract and deflect rather than address the real issues.
Yes, they should be destroyed. It's going to be very difficult. This is not going to have an easy solution. Israel may, in the end, not be able to completely destroy Hamas. I hope they can. I hope they can in the way that the United States and Germany destroyed Nazism and destroyed Imperial Japanese. And in the end, what happened is the Japanese and the Germans were grateful for it. And then the United States and Great Britain helped rebuild Germany and Japan and turn them into great allies. That's my hope for Gaza. My hope for Gaza is that the people of Gaza will finally be rid of Hamas. That took over in a bloody coup, and that the United States and Europe can then rebuild it better than it was before, like a Marshall Plan, and hope that a democratically elected Palestinian people will then have a two-state solution.
Yeah, but
I've been in favor of a two-state solution since 1970.
But Alan, let me just jump in there. Only tonight, the Israeli ambassador to the UK made it abundantly clear, two-state solution is gone. Israel, I'll play you the clip. I'll play you the clip here.
Yeah, but he's wrong.
Is there still a chance for a two-state solution?
I think it's about time for the world to realize the Oslo paradigm failed on the 7th of October, and we need to build a new one. And in order to build a new one...
Does that new one include the Palestinians living in a state of their own? Is that what it includes?
I think the biggest question is what type of Palestinians are on the other side? This is what Israel realized
do they
on
have
the
a
7th
state,
of October.
though?
The answer is absolutely no.
You see, when you hear that,
Well,
this
wrong.
confirms.
She's wrong.
Yeah, but hang on, Alan. This confirms what many Palestinians have feared, that for 20 years or more, the Israeli government and Netanyahu in particular have had absolutely zero interest in any two-state solution. And so if that's
But
not...
let's remember that Israel offered a two-state solution in 1948, 1967, 1994, 2000, 2001. They came very close, 2001. 2005, 2007, the vast majority of Israeli people, Israel's a democracy, unlike Hamas. The Israeli people will vote for a two-state solution if the circumstances are right, if there is no Hamas, and if the Palestinian Authority will have elections, and if the people of the West Bank and Gaza vote for a peaceful Palestinian Authority, there will be a two-state solution.
I'm going to come back to Professor Finkelstein in 1 second, but again, today, Netanyahu has said explicitly there can be no Hamas-run or Fatah-run Gaza after this. He said it today.
Yeah, but he's not going to be in power after this.
He's got no intention of either Hamas or Fatah running Gaza. So who is going to run it? He thinks he wants to.
He's not going to be in power after this. After this, there will be a national security government, probably headed by people like Gantz, maybe Bennett. The people of Israel are going to decide, and the people of Israel get to make that decision, and they're going to decide on a two-state solution. The one thing that's clear is with Gaza dominated by Hamas, there cannot be a two-state solution.
Let me go back to
but
Professor
without
Finkelstein.
Hamas, anything's possible.
Okay, I agree with that. I don't think Hamas can possibly be left in control. I just don't think that this mission is going to eradicate Hamas in the timescale which America is now clearly laying down for their support. Professor Finkelstein,
you may be right.
How do you see this playing out from here?
Okay, I would like to say a couple of things, if you don't mind, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Number one, Professor Dershowitz attaches a lot of importance to what the people of Israel want. And so let's look at what the people of Israel want. According to the most recent polls, 60% of Israelis believe, Jewish Israelis, 60% of Jewish Israelis believe that Israel is not using sufficient force in Gaza.
This is chilling. 60% think the destruction isn't enough. What does sufficient force even mean when Gaza is already a wasteland? More airstrikes? More dead children? It's like saying we've already bulldozed your house, but we think we should bulldoze your neighbors too. This poll shows the mindset we're dealing with. A public that's been conditioned to see war as the only solution. And here's the irony. This level of force doesn't make Israel safer. It just fuels more hatred, more extremism, and more violence. But hey, keep telling yourself it's about security, right?
60% believe that Israel should, or the government, should escalate the amount of force it should use in Gaza. Number two, it's the Israeli government, it's the Israeli people who democratically elected this ultra-right-wing government. It's not as if the claims are made that Hamas has been imposed on the people of Gaza. But there's no imposition in Israel. I quite agree with Professor Dershowitz, at least for Jewish Israelis, it's a democratic country. And they democratically elected the ultra-right-wing government. So I think those are two very good indications. I can't say they're very auspicious indications, but they are very good indications of what the Israeli people want. Number three, I'm not now going to go into a long disquisition on the history of the so-called peace process, but I would ask your listeners, if they have the time, patience, and interest, to just Google what's called the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine. And that's a General Assembly resolution that comes up every single year for decades. And it calls for that two-state settlement on the June 1967 border, and it calls for a peaceful settlement on the basis of international law. Now, if you look at the voting record every single year, it's the whole world, including the state of Palestine, on one side, supporting a two-state settlement on the basis of international law, and on the other side, opposing. It's the United States, Israel, and usually some South Pacific atolls like Tuvalu, Nauru, and Micronesia and the Marshall Islands. That record is written in stone.
This is both hilarious and tragic. Finkelstein paints the picture perfectly. On one side, the entire international community, and on the other, Israel, the US, and Tuvalu, Micronesia. You can't make this stuff up. This isn't a coalition, it's a farce. And it highlights the isolation of Israel's position. How do you claim to be on the side of justice and democracy when your only other allies other than the US are tiny islands no one can find on a map? It's like bringing your cousin and their pet goldfish to a heavyweight fight and claiming you've got backup.
It can't be changed. And it makes very clear what is the obstacle to a settlement. The obstacle is Israel, backed by the United States, opposes a two-state settlement on the basis of international law, the law that has been defined by the International Court of Justice, the legal arm of the United Nations. Now,
That's wrong.
I'm going to make one remark now which you will find perhaps controversial or unacceptable, Piers. However, I hope you'll allow me to say it, and then you can engage it, as you said, in a civil fashion. You say that the actions of Hamas have disqualified it from any participation in a peaceful settlement. Now, I am not going to make any brief for Hamas. It's for the people of Palestine to decide who should be their leaders, who should represent them. But I do have to ask you, Piers, and I respect you, so I'm asking you this as a matter of not rhetoric, but one intelligent person to another. I'm asking a simple question. If it's the case that the actions of Hamas on October 7th disqualify it from being party to a peaceful settlement, roughly 1,200 people were killed, about 30 of them being children. Why is it not then also the case that the actions of the state of Israel since October 7th, the deliberate war of genocide against the people of Gaza, which has left about 15,000 people dead, not 1,200, 15,000, and has left dead not 30 children, but has left dead about 7,000 children. And as we speak now, 7,000 more children are threatened with death because of starvation. I ask you, as a logical proposition, why isn't the state of Israel disqualified from any final settlement of the question?
Oh no, we're actually using logic in a debate? This is the moment Finkelstein flips the entire debate on its head. If we are disqualifying Hamas for its actions, then by that same logic, Israel should be disqualified too. And he's right. How do you justify holding one side to a standard while letting the other side do whatever it wants? It's hypocrisy at its finest. But of course, Dershowitz won't address this head on. He'll pivot, he'll deflect, but he actually won't answer this. Because there is no good answer. The double standard is baked into the system and Finkelstein is ripping it wide open. But let's see how they attempt to deflect this and go from here.
And one last thing, because you ask, what do I believe? I will tell you what I believe. I believe, number one, immediately after the war comes to an end and the blockade of Gaza, that cruel, inhuman blockade of Gaza, that war crime in Gaza, that crime against humanity, the blockade of Gaza, it has to be lifted. But once there's a ceasefire and once that inhuman blockade of Gaza is lifted, once the walls of that concentration camp come tumbling down, then I see two steps. Step number one, there have to be war crimes prosecutions. I have no problem in saying on both sides, but there must be accountability. You cannot get away with executing a war of genocide in broad daylight and then continue. And number two, there has to be a settlement on the basis of international law. That is the only consensus basis for ending the conflict once and for all.
And Finkelstein hits us with the uncomfortable truth no one wants to admit. International law is the only path forward, but Israel and its allies have spent decades ignoring it. Why? Because they know that following the law would only mean giving up land, power, and control. It's not about security, it's about domination. Finkelstein is saying what needs to be said. If you want peace, you have to play by the rules. Israel doesn't want peace, it wants submission, and until that changes, this cycle of violence will never end. As always, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts. Be sure to comment down below what you guys think. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe so we can continue making videos like these. And as always, we'll see you guys in the next one.